Where are we? Looking to the right meeting would be good. You know, somehow I should know for just.
Or the LUV.
Because the low. I just expected. But I see Johnson.
Nope.
She's at Arrow.
She's a Jasper.
Sweet, eh?
So when I was in the board, guess where we went?
Time is 2 p.m. and I will call the May 19th, 2026 Committee of the Whole meeting to order and begin with the land acknowledgement. The City of Fort Saskatchewan is located within Treaty 6 territory and Métis Nation of Alberta District 11. We recognize that we stand upon the land that carries the footsteps of many Indigenous peoples, including the Nihiwak, the Dene, the Blackfoot, the Saulteaux, the Nakota Sioux, and the Métis. The city honors the first peoples of this land and is committed to fostering reconciliation through relationship building, knowledge gathering, and education. All right, so a couple of housekeeping items since we have some new folks and one recently hired Director of People Services. Welcome aboard, Joseph. Exit is to your right. If there's an emergency, exit to the right, go up the stairs. If for whatever reason that is blocked, we have a super secret exit for council right behind me and to my right, to your left, and we kind of can sneak out that way. If you are in any way in doubt, just follow a staff member and they will assuredly lead you to safety. Washrooms are located in the main lobby, and I'm really excited and happy that you're joining us today. Just kind of as a note, Councillor Ketcher is away at an Arrow Utilities retreat. I believe they're going on a long survival hike for team building or something. I'm not sure. That is a rumor. All right. We will begin with adoption of the agenda. If there are no additions or changes to the agenda, I will take a motion to adopt.
I'll make the motion that we adopt the agenda as circulated.
Awesome. Motion closed. Please cast your ballot. Awesome. That is carried unanimously. All right. So this is, for me, this is the most exciting part of the agenda is where we invite delegations. And so if somebody would like to come and talk, perhaps somebody in the audience with a big stack of paper would like to come and address council, you're more than welcome to do so. Just for the record, if you could maybe state your name and what item you would like to speak to, and just keep in mind that try to keep it within about 5-ish minutes there.
Okay, my name is John McMillan, and I'm here to give support to the planning department. Kudos for the planning department. I was involved with the planning department for 17 months with 19 meetings. This data here was my background information in order to get it into the Pineview Land Use Bylaw. Okay, I'm not going to talk about the bylaw. That happens later at your public hearing. This purpose of this is just to give support to the planning department. Okay, there were 7 engagement sessions for Pineview. I'm just going to take 3 minutes of your time. There were 7 engagement sessions for Pineview. The first draft was in 2024, November. Second draft, 2025 in February. The overall Pineview attendance was 300 people, which resulted in 243 feedback submissions. This attendance represented 70% of the total city engagement attendance. Pineview residents are very passionate about their neighborhood. The planning department engagement sessions were extremely well organized. The residents are very grateful to the planning department for the amount of engagement sessions that they held with the city. Every time I talk to the residents, they say they're very grateful of the planning department. Last night I was over on talking to people who their homes back onto Highway 21, talking to those people, and they were saying the same thing, that they were very grateful for the planning department's engagement sessions. Important takeaway: the planning department listens. They told me that, and I'm just reiterating what they told me. Okay, they do listen. My personal engagement, I mentioned it already. I had 19 meetings with the planning staff and or leadership over 17 months. It started with Craig, and then Taryn, Shree, Lindsay, Dean, and Janelle. My two key objectives during those meetings were a win-win document that makes sense and enables sensitive densification as per the municipal development plan goals, while preserving the neighborhood character, and a document that would be useful going forward for many years. To also end up with a document in which the residents will overwhelmingly support that document, which is what you have in your draft today. I think Lindsay's coming later to talk to that. And also to have their overwhelming support as compared to coming to the land use bylaw hearing later and saying we don't support it. I know they're going to come and say I support this 100% for Pineview. In the communication later regarding the land use bylaw in general, the Pineview district was given as an example in your package, okay, as a comprehensive district. 94% of the feedback received from the Pineview residents during that final engagement session expressed satisfaction with the final revised draft. So that was my objective going to these meetings with the staff and with leadership, to see it overwhelming support. 94% support for that is pretty spectacular. Various levels of solutions were applied in this document regarding the residents' concerns. Full solutions amounted to 32% of their 32%. Partial solutions, 43%. Low or no solutions, 24%. The Pineview regulations and the land use bylaw project are aligned. The Pineview land use bylaw and the municipal development plan objectives for established neighborhoods are aligned. Limited integration of duplexes, backyard suites, basement suites, mixed use node. One of the end results of what I've been doing with the residents, plus with the planning department, injecting my 2 cents worth. End result of that is also that I have a network now established in Pineview with residents totaling 3,649 combined years of living experience of Pineview residents throughout all of Pineview. My next goal is to align with the residents that are back onto Highway 21 and get them engaged with my Pineview newsletters also. Thank you for your time, and thanks again for the planning department for listening and making a very good, useful document for the next 10, 20, 30 years for sense of densification in Pineview. Okay, thanks.
Awesome stuff there, John. Thank you very much. I always appreciate your how prepared you are for every land use bylaw issue. It is an amazing. I'm also impressed with how you were able to keep all that stack of information to 4 minutes and 37 seconds, which is like super. All right. With that, clarifying questions, Mayor Macon.
Thanks for being here today, John. I don't have any questions for you. I just wanted to say thank you for your engagement, for your thoughtful suggestions, and for being passionate about your neighborhood. There is not a lot of people who would have put the time, effort, and that amount of paperwork into this, and we truly appreciate the effort and your support.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you.
Anyway, thank you very much. Yep. Well, John, you're always welcome to stay for as long as you like, or if you want to beat a quick exit, it's on the left.
I'll watch it online.
Okay, take care. I don't see any other potential delegations. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. First, are there any errors or omissions required for the minutes? Once, twice. If there are none, I'll take a motion for approval of the April 21st, 2026 Committee of the Whole minutes. Councillor Nguyen.
Yeah, I'll move that council approve the committee of the whole meeting minutes from April 22nd?
21st.
21st, thank you, 2026.
Awesome. I will close the motion. Please cast your ballot. That's carried unanimously. Awesome. Next item on our agenda is presentations. Anne-Marie Reddy, Habitat for Humanity.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor. Thank you for allowing me to present Habitat for Humanity. Just to confirm, how much time do I have?
You know what? It's fairly open.
Okay.
For you, you're a registered. How do I say this nicely? 15-ish minutes, but you
Okay.
know what?
All right. Hopefully, it won't
Don't
take
feel like you're being rushed.
All right. I thought it was important for Habitat for Humanity to come out. I do not know when the last time Habitat would have presented to Council. I have been with Habitat 5.5 years, and I have never made a presentation to to Council. So thank you for giving me time today. On the first slide, I just want to make note of where Habitat for Humanity sits on the affordable housing spectrum. We are sort of after rentals and before what we refer to as market home ownership. So those are individuals that can afford to save for down payment and buy their own home. We sort of sit in between those two spectrums in terms of who we serve in the communities of where we currently have homes and where we're building. What we like to say more than ever right now, certainly since we've seen housing, any form of housing, whether it's rentals and homeownership, start to get further out of reach, is that we are bridging that gap. We are finding more and more individuals being priced out of homeownership, simply the biggest obstacle being that they simply cannot afford a down payment. Unless you have the bank of mom and dad to help support, many individuals are having to wait an additional 7 to 10 years to actually save for down payment. We know the ripple effect of that is building generational equity is now being pushed out. Starting of families is being pushed out. And so we're seeing that homeownership is definitely having an impact, not only just in
Oh, and Marie, if you could maybe just bring the mic a little bit closer
So-
to yourself. More to
is
where.
that better? Now,
Good.
do I need to repeat anything, or is
No,
everyone,
it's
we're good?
mostly for
Okay.
our folks out in the YouTube feed.
Okay, so that is in essence what we see as the biggest impact when we're looking at communities in and around Edmonton and the surrounding area, because our sort of catchment area for Habitat for Humanity is sort of northern Alberta. In 2024, Habitat for Humanity Canada did a sort of a Deloitte research to sort of look at the long-term effects of Habitat for Humanity's homeownership program. First and foremost, it is a program, so it has a front end and a back end. The back end, and certainly what happens when individuals get access to homeownership, are these sort of highlights. When we did the research, we were asking individuals, not only in our program, but those trying to get into homeownership, what's impacting them. What we know Canadians are saying is that they firmly believe, or starting to believe, homeownership is getting further and further out of reach. Some have concerns that being a homeowner is simply just going to be a luxury of the few. They feel that with the rising cost of living, that the gap is getting wider when it comes to trying to save for a down payment. But we also know that homeownership for many Canadians is still very much first and foremost a dream and something that a lot of people try to achieve. If you were to look at who Habitat was when they first entered Canada, it was a real charity-based, religious-based organization of getting a group of volunteers together to build for the extreme poor and giving them an opportunity to have a home, which they would never achieve. And that started in the United States with the fuelers. And then in 1985, it actually, an affiliate started in Canada in 1985. And then we opened our doors here in Edmonton in 1991. Our affiliate also operates Restores. So a Restore is our social enterprise. As a registered charity, Habitat does not receive any form of funding from any municipal, federal, or provincial government as it relates to operations. So everything that we are able to raise through our Restore operations, and we have 6, 3 in the city, and then Leduc, St. Albert, and Sherwood Park. And then by way of donations and grants and just various other fundraisings that we do, such as our golf tournament, all go towards supporting our operations and goes towards supporting the actual construction of builds. So who is the program built for today? We would say 2 key categories. One is definitely our young professionals. We know that individuals are coming out and having to make a choice. Do I either go to school and get an education, or do I save for a down payment because I can't do both anymore? And we're saying to individuals that are choosing to actually go down the route of getting a trade or going to a secondary education, that you can get into home ownership, and you can get into home ownership through our program. We also have young growing families. And so these are individuals that might have started their families younger in life and are just caught in a rent cycle. And there's absolutely no way that they're going to be able to afford a down payment while they're raising a family. And so we would say that we're trying to change that and start that generational wealth building for the family by getting them into homeownership now rather than waiting another 7 or 10 years before they think they can save for their 5% down. What I will say is that the program and the requirements of the program have also changed. If you were to go back and look at this program 20 years ago when we were utilizing volunteers to build, and in terms of how people were coming into the program, it was of the greatest need. That has fundamentally changed over the years as the economy has changed, and just in general, everything has changed about housing. What we see is that, what we say is that this is not a social program. This is true home ownership for the individuals. And we put an enormous amount of focus and attention now on getting individuals ready for the responsibility and the financial responsibility of home ownership. Our primary focus is financial independence. So individuals that come into a homeownership program, that's the starting point. The end point is our objective is to have them transition on and out of our program and on to market homeownership within that 10 years. We've modeled it out, it can work, but depending on family circumstances and whatever, we can extend out beyond 10 years. But the biggest thing is homeownership readiness. And the biggest difference we say is that there isn't any need for a down payment to come into our program. The mortgage payments and what makes it affordable for the individuals and the families coming in is the actual mortgage payment itself. Once the house is ready, if it's done through a buyback, which I'll explain a little bit later, or it is a brand new construction and we get it valued by an appraiser, it's 50% of the value of the home. So if the home, once it's finished by the builder, is valued at $300,000, the homeowners are only carrying a mortgage of 50%, so that's $150,000. There is no mortgage default insurance, there are no realtor fees. They are basically walking into the home with that mortgage and being able to build equity right away with every mortgage payment. So they have to be qualified through a financial lender, and our lenders are Service and ATB. We no longer carry the mortgage for a homeowner as we did in the past, but we do hold the second as a registered second on the mortgage, 0% interest and no mortgage payment, so that the homeowners can afford the mortgage payments. So who qualifies? Must be a Canadian citizen, must be employed full-time on a permanent basis, have an annual gross income somewhere between that 60 to 85,000, and that's basically set by the province of Alberta CNET. Good credit rating, so our credit ratings are starting at around that 650. The biggest difference is the volunteer hours. So the volunteer hours, because the community comes together to help support individuals and families getting into home ownership. This is part of that CRA requirement as well, that the homeowners are giving 500 hours back to their community. And so that is a vital part of the program, and we have checks and balances, and it's built right into the legal agreement. That they are to give the 500 hours back. Some of them choose to volunteer at a Habitat Restore because the hours might be flexible for them. Others do volunteer work at their children's school or in a variety of different community events that they are involved in. Again, what we do know about homeownership and its impact on individuals, these are the things that the Deloitte research came out and found. We know from physical, mental health is better for individuals that are homeowners versus those that are renters. Community engagement, financial well-being is also shows a stronger score. What was really interesting is that when Deloitte did the same similar research over the year, they found that employment is 30% more when individuals transition from rental into homeownership. The biggest piece of that we do know is that in any program where your income is solely, or your payment of rent is solely tied to your income, we've known that individuals have chosen, and even with our initial legacy program, chose not to take a promotion, chose not to put additional hours in at work because they didn't want to see their rent or payments go up. But once you become a homeowner and the pride of homeownership sets in, individuals actually choose to take on a different role or take on a promotion or actually put in additional hours to gain more income. We also see the education piece is huge, not only for the children in terms of children just doing better, and it's simply because they have space to study that they didn't have when they were in a crammed rental environment, but even the parents, and we see that within our own program of moms and dads going back to school and upgrading their skills. Because now, again, they have this sense of pride, of belonging in their community, and they really do want to be successful, and they want to be able to transition out of our program and on their own and do it on their own. Our buyback program is probably the biggest way that we serve in any community. So when a home owner is ready to transition out of our program and do it on their own, what we do is that we assess the home for its stability and to make sure that it's still a great home in a good location. And then the homeowner gets their equity. We go in and we renovate the home. And then we turn around and we sell that home to another individual who's able to qualify for the program. And so that's pretty much how our cycle continues. So when we are building in a community, we're not just building for one homeowner, we're building for probably 3 to 5 homeowners. That's another reason why we went with builders and developers and not doing it through volunteers. For 2 reasons. One, the quality of the home is so much different, and in terms of the finishings and everything else, you can't. And the builders today, they build amazing quality, and it's a space we don't really have the expertise in. And so, and then the other thing is we've gotten out of building big condo complexes in communities. So that's the beauty of building with a builder and developer. You drive down the street, you don't know who's a Habitat homeowner and who isn't. And that's the way we want it. The only difference for any individual that's moving into our program and using our program is that your mortgage looks a little different, and that's it. Everything else to the homeowners is that they qualified like anybody else. It's just the mortgage looks and feels different. So the impact that we've had since 91 is represents about 935 homeowners mortgages that we've done. Obviously, you can see the biggest portfolio that we have is single moms. They represent a very large portfolio for us, representing what we know for adults and children as well. I did reach out to sort of Fort Saskatchewan in terms of city prior to this. This is where we come in and we sort of make our ask to council about the type and level of support that we're looking for. From a council's perspective and from any municipality that we're going into, we have different layers of support. The math for us doesn't work if we have to build this home on our own. And try and raise $350,000 to $400,000 to start building either a duplex or a triplex. And our builders, the ones that we do and have used in the past, have been very gracious in terms of giving us an amazing discount when they're selling the homes to us. So that really helps. Our provincial government has come up with money for us. So I'm expecting to build about 45 homes in the next 3 years. So for 2026, I've already locked down the 15 that I need to build. And in so now I'm looking for 27 and 28, and roughly about 15 homes in 27 and 15 homes in 28. And I'm looking to build those more in the outskirts of Edmonton, because my 15 homes that I'm building for this year are all in the city of Edmonton. So I would like to see us going out into our supporting communities. The land is our biggest challenge in a couple of ways. The land is expensive, doesn't matter where you're buying the land, and the servicing of the land and those sort of things. So if it's council and has it within their budget or can put it in their budget to provide a form of a grant that allows us to buy the land at below cost, that helps us in terms of our math and the cost of what it is to actually build a home. Also looking for if there's an opportunity for developments and permits and fees that they can be waived on anything that is built for affordable home ownership, and sort of faster approvals and planning when we're looking at the development and permits. We usually work with a builder initially, identify an area that they're already building in the community, and that helps. And your administration has already put us in touch with some builders that are already building in the community. So that's been extremely helpful. So these are where we're currently building. These are the homes that we are building for 2026. We are building 4 in St. Albert. We take possession of those in June. 4 homes just broke ground actually this week in Griesbach with a builder. And the Glen Riding Ravine townhomes, we expect to receive 3 in July and then 4 in September. So St. Albert is with Aberton Homes, Glen Riding Ravine is with Rohit, and Griesbach is a joint venture of Vivid Homes and Build Edmonton Homes. That is the end of my presentation. I certainly would welcome any questions. Councillor?
All right. Councillor Blizzard, you're on.
a whole pile came. Thanks for all the information, but I have tons of questions. So
Sure.
as others pop up, I'll bow down. If nobody's up, I'll keep going. But you know, I like home ownership. I think it is important. I certainly encourage my kids to, you know, get their own house because you're building equity in yourself. But it also comes with lots of knowledge that you need. And some of it, I know when I got a house, my dad was a builder. So, you know, it wasn't free. We had to buy our house. But years ago, it was a brand new house because he was a builder. And all of a sudden, you're in the house and you're like, hey, this is good. I've got the mortgage. Yep, we can afford payments. Oh, wait, we need a fence. Oh, wait, we need window coverings. Oh, wait, there is so much more on a new build. Are they walked through some of the extras, or does Habitat provide all of that?
So in any of the homes that we're building with brand new, everything is done with respect to it's all built into the initial cost for that very reason. Homeowners that are coming in here don't suddenly have an additional $7,000 to $10,000 to build a back deck or a fence or landscaping. So all of that is done and is part of the contract that we work with the builder on for that very reason. Anyone coming into the homeownership program now has to go through quite a bit of pre-training. So it's on budgeting, it's on home care, it's on savings and credit, and they're all mandatory courses that every homeowner has to take before we will even put in a pre-approval for them. Because it's important that individuals know that homeownership is not cheap. For the homes that we're building, the ones you saw here, the things like window coverings are included. And that's the other thing that we get with a quality builder that when we were building them, you weren't getting. And appliances we also work into the cost. So we try and take away as much of the initial upfront pressure as possible because they will need to go and buy a shovel, buy a little mower, to cut whatever little bit of grass they might have and that sort of thing. The other thing we really try and build is garages. When you look at 400 and over half of our homeowners are single moms, that's a security thing for us, is ensuring that they have a garage that they can drive into, especially at night. So does that answer that?
Yeah, kind of. I'm thinking even long term. I know a lot of people complain about, you know, when you buy into, say, a condo, you have condo fees.
Yes.
And
Yep.
I've said this to many people. You should do the same thing on your own. You should
Yep.
have a savings account. Banks, I think every single bank now has an easy e-savings account you can't access from a machine, and put in whether it's $50 or $100 a month, so that when that fridge that now they say lasts 8 years, it wouldn't even last the 10 years that they could be in your program. You know, you're ready for some repairs that come up, a roof or anything else.
Right. This is where we also rely on our providers, ATB and Service. And we have, I guess you could say, an understanding, and they've agreed. They work with the homeowners on savings. Now is the time to save RESPs for your kids. Now is the time to start putting away some money for those unexpected surprises.
See a lineup coming. I have one more question here for now. So you were going through it and I was kind of confused on, so does Habitat own the house, or is the mortgage under that person's name with the Habitat as I don't know what you call it, a
Registered,
covenant
yeah.
or something?
Yes. The homeowner is on title. It is through the registry's office. It is in their name. We just put a second registered right of first refusal on the title after the financial institution has registered their mortgage.
Because that's totally different from the way it used to be, right?
Right. Because it was. But this is true home ownership. They are on title. And it is their mortgage.
Okay, I'll see if some of my other questions get answered as we go around.
Okay, thank you,
Thanks.
Counselor.
Awesome. Thank you, Councillor Blizzard. Off to Councillor Nguyen.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here, Anne Marie. Quite a few questions. I was on council last time.
Sorry, Patrick. Push it again. I twitched. No, that's a me thing.
And thank you for the time.
You're done. Sorry.
I know you didn't like me, but the first question I'd have for you is why is there a requirement or the trend within your organization to purchase new properties? And it seems like there are countless affordable options of newly renovated properties that might be 20, 30 years old that could be a good fit for and give you the diversity of options for new homeowners. I mean, a lot of these have new appliances and furnaces and the rest, hot water heaters. So maybe you could make a comment on that.
Comes down to the type of funding that we receive. So the homes that we have in our portfolio that we've built over the last, say, 5 years required brand new construction. And that was a mandatory requirement under when we did have CMHC funding, co-investment funding. We didn't have a choice. We weren't allowed to buy a reuse, because you're correct, buying not having to buy brand spanking new makes a big difference in terms of cost. But it's always been a requirement of the grants that we've received.
Very simple answer. I appreciate that. I did not know. How many applicants do you receive per annum? And my thought pattern with this is there must be countless people who would qualify for this. If you think about even to the starting point of someone's career, a new college graduate and their first career choice or job offer, they would be a perfect candidate for it. You mentioned single moms are someone who applies and qualifies frequently. So maybe you could paint a bit more of a picture of how many applicants and then kind of how the vetting process is done accordingly.
So usually for every 10 applications that we get in, we're lucky to get one approved, or at least at the pre-approval stage. Individuals, we don't keep an actual pipeline of individuals and keep them on hold, simply because if we're not currently building, which now we are, but if we were just waiting for buybacks, we don't know when a buyback is going to come through. And because individuals have to qualify at their financial institution, service or ATB, that to get them pre-qualified, on that rate and the approval is only held anywhere from 90 to 180 days. So if the individual goes out and racks up a credit card, suddenly they come back and think they're going to get a home and they don't qualify anymore because they've extended their debt servicing. So we try not to have a lot of people in our hopper until we know we have a home ready to go. Then we kind of open up our portal and allow individuals to actually start submitting qualifications. You would think when it comes to the individuals that apply, but most people don't understand. What we do from our own research, a lot of individuals still think we are social housing. So we get a lot of people that apply to us that aren't working full time, that haven't been in Canada a long time, are actually just landed, or individuals that have that just declared bankruptcy and they think that Habitat is a great second choice. That's not our program. So we've been last couple of years really trying to get out there and retell our story of who we are and where we are in the spectrum of affordable housing. And so we don't have a big wait list because I do know that we probably get about in a month 100 applications, but a lot of those were not moving to the second stage at all.
So about 120 maybe qualified applicants per year that.
I wouldn't even say that many.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nguyen. Councillor Randawa, dazzle us.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wesley. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, Dr. Heredia. Thanks for making the trek out there and appreciate the presentation. A handful of questions, if that's all right. You kind of touched on the ask towards the end of the presentation. Is there anything specific you had in mind, or are there examples you could give us from other municipalities similar to us that like what they have done or what the request has been made?
Sure. The St. Albert with Aberton Homes Council, we made a ask of a grant towards the purchase of land to help with the bills, which was granted. It was the same thing in Sherwood Park. We asked around a grant to purchase the land. That was last year's build, and it was granted. And so in those situations, we see the money transferring out of the municipality and going directly to the developer builder towards the purchase of that land in which those units are being built. The grants usually then are anywhere from a 10 or a 20-year term, prorated, so that if for some reason the unit is sold, a portion of that grant is given back to the municipality based on how many years that it's sort of amortized out to. Does that help? Like that's, and then they expedite the building permits and whatever and give a break to the builder developer who's building for us on those costs, which the builder and developer then give to us.
Okay, so in that helps kind of, I'm gonna try to understand that myself. So for Strathcona County, for example, when you say a grant over a certain term, is part of it's grant and part of it is a loan then to be returned?
No, it's not to be, it's only paid back if we break the terms of the agreement.
Okay, okay.
Right? So the grant is a forgivable grant. So every year, a portion of that grant is forgivable. It's the same thing that we've had with our CMHC funding and our provincial funding. They're all grants. But if at any time we're breaking the contract or the terms of the agreement, the money goes back to the party.
Okay, and so is there a specific request for us today to ponder and consider as a council
Well,
as we
in
go
terms,
forward?
if you're building out budgets for 27 and 28, if there is an opportunity to start looking at putting money towards affordable homeownership in a community, that is really what I'm asking for. Usually, the cost of any lot it will be anywhere from $75,000 to $150,000. So different councils offer that sort of range between the number of units that we're actually asking a builder to build for us.
Okay. I had a few questions, I guess, around the organization itself. So I was kind of going through your financial statements and so forth.
Yep.
Could you perhaps speak to council about, how your organization is progressing, how the financial strength and, like, I would say, your operations have been doing over the past couple of years?
If you were to look at the financials when I came in 5.5 years ago, we were $26.7 million in debt. We finished off 2025 just under 10 million. A lot of that really had to be around how we were building, who we were, how we were managing the homeownership program in terms of we were carrying 100% of the debt on the mortgage at 0% interest. And then taking back the homes and completely renovating them at 100% of the cost of the organization. It wasn't sustainable. So we no longer build using volunteers, hence builders and developers. We have streamlined an enormous amount of our operations and continue to do so. And the mortgage model that we have on a 50-50 split is a sustainable model. The biggest difference is for us, though, is that when we had the mortgages for, and we were mortgaging the homes at 100%, and we were the bank, the deregulated bank, but we were the bank that showed up on our balance sheet as being 100% of our asset. Now that we have our mortgages with the financial institution, we don't hold those homes on our balance sheet anymore. Okay. So that's been the biggest, like if you look at our assets, consistently goes down because we still have about 197 old mortgages, what we refer to as our legacy mortgages on our books. But as those homes come up for sale, like homeowners are ready to move on, we're buying those back, they are completely taken off our balance sheet. So that's a big piece. Our administrative costs have dropped about 28%. The biggest part of that is because we don't have a big construction team anymore and a big prefab facility to build homes and a big volunteer group that looks after all the volunteers that show up. So it's been a huge fundamental shift, cultural and how we show up in a community. But it was necessary.
Okay.
So Randella, can I get you to cycle around the airport
sorry.
for a bit? And you know, I have to defer to Mayor Macon. I mean, when the boss has got the name up there, you know, at some point in time, you get scared when she doesn't get a chance to speak. You're on, boss.
Thank you. A lot of great questions already. I just have two kind of probably smaller ones left on my list. Just question about the application requirements. Do you consider the applicant's family financial status, or is it simply based on that individual themselves?
It is who is going to be on the mortgage application.
Okay.
And so if it's a mom and a dad, then it's the income of both mom and dad that are taken into consideration. If it is a single parent and maybe they have an adult child, depending on the status of the adult child. So if the adult child has disabilities, then it's just the single parent. We also have, more recently, we've had some applicants where the individuals moving in are the parents, right? So in those, we assess and see if there's what type of income is coming in for the parents that are joining their children. So every situation is looked at. We have certain requirements that we require, but then we do look at the picture.
Okay.
Of what the situation is for the family. Just like we have an income range, but we've also gone over that income range when we've had a family come in, a husband and wife with 3 children, but one of them is severely disabled and requires an enormous amount of care that isn't covered by any form of financial assistance. So we've allowed the income to be higher to support.
Okay, no, great answer. And then my last question is, rate of homeowners that are able to move to the next stage within that 10 years that you referenced. Do you find that you have a pretty good success rate on that? Or is it something that you're finding that you more and more have to kind of give an extension on?
The 10 years is a change only in my sort of tenure, so we're not seeing the sort of that piece of it yet. What I will say is the work that we've been doing over the last 5 years of getting even the older book of business, the legacy sort of homeowners, getting them to a state of readiness, we are starting to see the success that the program should actually be having.
Okay.
With the older model.
Mm-hmm.
But we also know that there are some individuals that will likely never be able to transition out of their home.
Okay.
Just simply because of income.
Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity, Councillor West.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'm keeping it to the recommended amount of questions too. All around pro. I just have a couple questions, Anne Marie. When the homeowner wants to sell back their home or house, how is that price determined?
So under the old model, the mortgage that was held with Habitat at 0% interest, it's in the contract that they're buying it back for what they paid for.
Okay.
In the new model, they are getting market appreciation. So, and market appreciation only comes in after year 5. So they have to be in the home at least 5 years, which most individuals they have to take a 5-year fixed at either ATB or service. And then after 5 years is when they start gaining market appreciation, and it's based on the percentage of the home value. So if it's a 50-50 split, when they choose to leave, they'll get 50% of the market appreciation on their portion, and we keep the other 50%. And that's basically what we end up using to refurbish the house and sell it again.
Okay. Maybe a little bit of a trickier question. I mean, the idea of building home equity is so incredibly important.
Yeah.
But how do you balance that? You want the first homeowner to build home equity, but you also want to keep that house affordable for owner number two. How do you balance those two interests?
Well, in terms of when we're looking at it, that will come down to our ability to play with the loan to value. So for the individual, we have some where it's been a 60-40 split. Because of the situation, we know that we're getting an individual that is going to do well in the program. They're going to be able to transition on in a suitable manner and with some good equity. But maybe we're holding 60% and they're only having 40%. We want to be able to get to that point that if we are ever in an economy where housing prices, so you think about GTA or Vancouver, they have similar models to us, but they can't do a 50-50 split because no homeowner can walk in paying $500,000 within a very tight income band. So our hope is that these homes kept in good quality, that if housing goes a little through the roof, that we're able to play a little bit more with the loan to value. So it may not be a 50-50 split, maybe it'll be a 60-40. That keeps it affordable for the homeowner.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Councillor Blizzard.
Patrick on yet?
Yeah, Patrick is gone. Yeah.
The more we talk, the more questions I write
That's
down,
fine.
so I'll keep going, but I'll just go down a few here. Do you track, and I guess if you've only been here 5 years and this program has changed over that 5+ years, it might be hard, but is the plan to track the success of long-term ownership, like 15 years down the road? They may have moved on, but do you keep the names, maybe keep in touch? How are they doing?
And that's something we only started introducing that since my tenure, is this ability to reach out to homeowners and ask them, can we touch base with you in X amount of years?
Okay.
And check in and see how you're doing since you left the program. But it comes down to their willingness to give us the information, but yeah.
Yeah, you
We
can't
try.
force it, but it would be a
Yeah.
good thing. And can that homeowner, so say you mentioned 150 on each side, can they do a lump sum? Banks allow that if for some reason, they helped, they had a good year, maybe for some reason, some overtime came and they said, hey, I've got 5,000, can I put it against my mortgage to...
Under the new mortgage rules, yes. If your mortgage, if you look at it, if you have a fixed rate, you can pay up to 10%. If it's a variable rate, I think you can go up to 15 or 20%. So those same rules apply to the homeowners. In our legacy, we don't have any minimum amount. And so we do have homeowners that have actually paid off their home well before it's amortized.
But you wouldn't at the end force them out?
No,
like
we
if
will
they've
never.
paid it off or they're content?
No. We will never force an individual out of the program if they are meeting the requirements of the program. Have we in the past? Absolutely, if they were not meeting the requirements of the program. And that means making their payments.
To you, yeah, it's not to you anymore. I guess the bank might have a say. Hey?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to move on, or
You can do one
more?
You can do one more. You've been wonderful, Councillor Bird.
Okay. Let me see. I'm looking at the pictures, and I'll have more questions on that. But do you tend to use condos, townhouses? What's the normal type of housing, and what's the normal cost or average cost? I guess there's going to be variation.
Normal house, we prefer townhomes.
Okay.
That is our preference, is townhomes, and it just comes down to cost. If we're building single-family dwellings, they just get very expensive because of the lot lines and everything else. So, duplexes and townhomes is our preferred. We will look at condos as well. Condos in a complex work very well because when you talked about it, Councillor, about the cost of maintenance and everything else, condo fees at least manage the outside maintenance issues, which is hugely beneficial to the homeowner.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nguyen, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. It's a great questions being asked, and thank you for providing all the information. Something that caught my eye, and when I was looking at the presentation, was that the requirement for volunteer hours. Now, from your presentation, I hear that that's a requirement set by CRA, exactly, and kind of resonated with me that some people may opt out of overtime hours or promotions so that they stay under maybe a subsidy qualification income threshold for housing. So could you maybe tell me the rationalization of CRA to impose this volunteer hour when it seems like that's something that it could free up time for individuals to progress in their area of employments, or the opportunity cost of that time. It seems like a high number to me as well. And maybe have you had discussions with CRA about lowering or limiting that hour commitment, so for the purpose of advancement of their careers?
It is an ongoing discussion, especially for our single parents. They really struggle with the hours. We give them 2 years, 18 months to 2 years to complete the hours. The other thing too is that what we find for individuals that take the hours in the restore, we have individuals that volunteer in our restore that will actually contribute their hours to our homeowners. So that ends up being a way that they help. We also allow the homeowners to have family complete volunteer in the community that they can use up to a certain percentage. I think 20 or 25% of those hours can be absorbed by other family members. So it's not just the individual paying the mortgage that is responsible. There is a value to the program deemed by CRA that with coming into homeownership with no down payment sort of thing. So the hours are, that's why pretty much they're a requirement to ensure that it's not seen as a freebie.
Yeah, fair enough. Thanks for that. It's good to hear that the volunteer part of the program has some flexibility to it, and so you're taking care of that.
And we do, we have, we do call outs to say thank you to our donors. Our homeowners love to sign up for stuff like that because they actually do it right from the comfort of their home. They don't have to leave. And we have other things that we get them to do. We have cleanup day in the community. So we did a big one in St. Albert last year. We had a whole bunch of homeowners come out and participate, and they get a whole bunch of hours for doing stuff. So we try and make it as easy as possible for the homeowners to complete their hours.
Excellent. Thank you. And then coming kind of down to a municipal level in Fort Saskatchewan, you must have done a little bit of market research here and gauge the demand, and also your organization's capacity to provide a certain quantity of housing in Fort Saskatchewan. So how many sites would you consider purchasing or developing in Fort Saskatchewan based on what you know of our city?
Anywhere from a 3-plex to a 4-plex. So we're looking at, and again, we're looking at over the next 2 years, right, 27 and 28. This year has already been looked after, so in 27, and I've already put out asks to a lot of other municipalities. So I'm trying to be mindful of just trying to spread it out for 27. I'd be looking for 4, and then for 28.
Okay, excellent. I misunderstood the answer to that question then. So it's just one 3-plex or 4-plex unit in the fort. Okay, thank you for that.
Good. All right, Councillor Rendawa has been patiently circling the airport. You're up.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Councillor Wesley, for giving me another opportunity, another kick of the can.
I just love to give.
When we had last spoke, you talked a little bit about the financial picture improving over the past 5 or so years that you've been with Habitat for Humanity. So I appreciate that and I understand that. Can you help me connect that story of the financial picture improving to when I go online and see like the 2025 financials? Because I still see a deficit there that was bigger than last year. Yep. Cash on hand doesn't seem like a lot. The profitability of the restore seems to be kind of declining as well. So help me kind of connect those two.
Yeah. So last year you definitely would have seen a decline because we opened up 2 new stores.
Yep.
So the cost of opening up the stores and everything else, we had huge capital expenditures that were taken right out of revenues for the restores. So we took a hit last year, which we knew we would. And we also started bringing on a new enterprise system. We are a very manual-based charity. Everything is paper-based in our organization, and a lot of people running around chasing paper. That system gets launched this year, so we had huge capital expenditures on that one. We, as a charity, operate in a deficit. We pay down our debt, but we pretty much, cash comes in and cash goes right out because we are a cash-based organization. So when you look at our financials, it doesn't look like it paints a very pretty picture, but we are sustainable. And I think more than anything, we've proven that in just how much debt that we've paid down. And if you were to look at our financials every year, we've never shown that we've been in the cash. And because our homes are and how we amortize our mortgages out, because we have to amortize them out at fair market value, even though we have them sitting on our books at 0% interest, that puts us at a deficit right there. And at any time, if anyone has any questions on the financials or wants to know more, we are an open book. We have nothing in terms of transparency. It is nothing to book a call with our VP of Finance to go through, because I will tell you, our board looks at our financials and shakes its head because it is very difficult with the money coming in and out, and because we don't on a day-to-day basis, how we move money through the organization is not your typical charity because we have so many lines of business.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
Awesome. Maybe I just ask one maybe simple question. When we talk about expedited permitting, how expedited or how fast does that look like? I'm the new kid on the block here, so maybe you can just provide me some color on that.
Right. So usually when we're ready, when a builder and developer is ready to go and they've already got the land ready for us, within 3 weeks, it would be great that we can actually start construction. And some municipalities are great at it, and some take several months. So we're just looking to, when you see affordable housing or affordable homeownership come to the docket, that it kind of gets a special place to, let's move this one through and get it started.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Councillor Blizzard, it's you again.
Yeah, nobody's here yet, so maybe I can finish up. You didn't mention it last time. Maybe a better question is, what's the range of pricing of the value of the house?
Did ask me that.
Yeah,
My apologies.
and maybe average is the wrong one. And I know they move, so it's more of a, what's the low end? If you're getting a townhouse is 200, 250, and what's the biggest house you might have?
So if we're looking at townhomes, we're looking probably, if we can get it under 350, we're lucky.
Okay.
If it's a single family home, depending on where they're being built. So I had homes built in Cold Lake 2 years ago, cost me $500,000 for every home. I couldn't get the trades, right? The builder was having trouble. So depending on the location, I would say if we can keep our homes in and around that 400. So if it's a duplex, 400 a side.
And what about condos? Because there are condos with 2 and 3 bedroom that would be suitable for a mom with 2 kids.
Interesting enough, 2 bedrooms are really difficult for us to sell. Very difficult. Even the single mom with 1 child, they need a separate space. So we do have requirements. 1,300 square feet seems to be the sweet spot. So if we can do 2 bedrooms with a small den, that works. But it comes down to this ability. Apartment style condos aren't really, they're not well sought after for home ownership. So we have some in our portfolio, and they sit from too long, because every time a home sits vacant, that's a carrying cost for us that we have no return on. So if we're putting product in a market, we want to make sure it's a product that's desirable and will sell fast.
Yeah, I guess that's the only problem I would have with this whole program is, and I hate to say kids today, but some people come in and, well, I don't want to go from a condo to a townhouse to maybe eventually a house. They want the big house right away. And I guess one of the issues I see when I'm looking at this Rondo Drive in the Griesbach, Edmonton, that looks like quite a big house, that, gee, I don't think my kids would be jumping into that right away. They went through different stages. So, yeah, anyway, just a comment. So you said that you price these so that if mom's going in, you look at her income with 2 kids. But what if boyfriend moves in or the dad is actually in the picture, but mom's saying, I'm going to have the house in my name?
The under our program, if whoever is living in the home as adults, like if it's a mom and a dad, both have to be on the mortgage
Okay.
and on title.
So you check into that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we do annual incomes every year. And if something has changed, then we go searching for it. So if somebody is not being truthful, then that is a break. You're now breaking the contract and the program.
Okay.
So we'll
yeah,
ask you
that's what I
to
was kinda looking for.
respectfully leave the program if you're not following the requirements.
Okay. And I think this is it. How do you pay your half of the mortgage? Do you have enough money? Because you said you're in debt though, so you must actually have it as a mortgage.
So that's the whole reason why we require it has to be a community effort to build a home. We can't do it on our own. If we're paying to build a home on our own, we can't do it. Financially, we can't sustain it. But if we're able to build a $300,000 home in which we'll get $150,000 from the first mortgage of Service or ATB that actually writes the mortgage, that comes to us. Now we're down to $150,000. Then we look to the builder and say, okay, so that home is valued at $300,000, but maybe you built it and sold it to us for $250,000. So now we take their savings and put that in. That covers off the second mortgage. If we get provincial funding, then we take the provincial funding. So if we get $100,000 a door, now we take that and we put it. Now we're only a delta of $25,000. So maybe on that home, that's what the municipality was able to give us by way of a grant. So now that gets our objective, and my mandate is that we are building break even. We are not incurring any debt. So between our donors that are giving to support building, to the municipalities, to the builders, to the province, that's how we're able to afford the second half of the mortgage and not have it sitting on our books.
Okay.
Or the
I
conduit.
get it. I still feel some of these are very lofty homes for someone that can't get into home ownership but says, but I want a big house when I do get it.
So and we're very specific, like in terms of for a builder to build something very specific just for us that looks different and feels different, it actually costs them more. When we had gone to builders in the past and say, okay, but we don't need all of this, we need to dumb it, like we need lower interior and whatever, they said, Emery, you're now breaking my supply chain. I now have to go out and get different products. That's going to cost me. I can't do it. It's going to cost you more. If you let me build it to our specs, then you're going to get a better quality product that stands the test of time, better flooring, better countertops, better appliances. The only mandate then now that we ask is the homes have to be 1,300 square feet. So every one of the homes that are on our website from Rohit and whatever are about 1,200 square feet a unit. Okay. So they may look big, whatever, but they're small on the interior. So that's the reason why. If you go into any of the homes that were built by volunteers, you can tell it was built by a volunteer.
I volunteered, so I'm sure the piece I did.
Yeah, and no
wasn't all that
disrespect for
great.
anybody that swung a hammer, because I also did that way before I joined Habitat. The other thing is market appreciation. That becomes so important. We need the value of these homes to stand the test of time. If I go back and I look at our legacy mortgages and our old builds, I'm losing value in those homes when we're taking them back. And they're in neighborhoods that I refuse to put another homeowner in because The landscape has changed, and we might have gotten that land for free, but it's not in a great neighborhood. There's a crack house across the street because we monitor those things. I am not putting another homeowner in that situation, especially a single mom with kids. So when people say your product looks a little, and you're right, they do, but we do that with purpose and intention. I want the homeowners to feel proud that they belong and that they're going to get good market appreciation when they go to sell. And when we try and resell these homes, we're going to be able to resell them and not have them sit there
Yeah,
vacant.
and I totally understand. I guess I'm going by the pictures, but like
Yeah.
you said, pictures can be deceiving. That house that looks massive, you're right, can be the 1,300 square feet, which isn't really that big for a family, but,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
All right. Well, seeing no further questions, just want to extend a hearty thank you, Anne Marie, for asking all our questions and into such great detail. Appreciate having you by. And hopefully, your next trip to us is within the next 6 years.
Again, thank you so much for your time today. Genuinely appreciate it.
All right. With that, there's been a request for a 10-minute or maybe 11-minute break until 3:20. Yeah, I know it's like going to Grandma and Grandpa's house. You know what? The rules are so much more relaxed. So, recess until about 3:20.
Just wait until she goes thumbs up.
All right, we're back. All right, so moving over to item 6.1 in new business, we have storm water facilities maintenance program and proposed reserve contributions. Richard Gagnon, Brian Rogers, and Kathy, I forgot to ask your last name. Lango. Okay, thank you very much. All right, over to you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the Committee of the Whole. My name is Richard Gagnon. I'm the Director of Public Works, and with me today is Brian Rogers, our Managers of Roads, and Kathy Lankoff, our Senior Accountant for the Infrastructure and Planning Services Division. The purpose of this presentation is to provide the Committee of the Whole with information on the city's stormwater monitoring and maintenance program and how it informs future reserve contribution for storm pond rehabilitation and major culvert replacement. This information is being presented to Council prior to administration recommending a contribution to stormwater reserve through the 2027 budget process. So see this presentation a little bit as a heads up of what's may coming at budget as a request to fund a existing reserve. A little bit of background. At the regular council meeting on August 26, 2025, council approved amendments to financial reserve policy, which included the addition of a dedicated category for stormwater infrastructure within the municipal infrastructure and equipment reserve. And at this time, no funding has been allocated to this reserve category. It's sitting at zero. Each year, Council approves a budget for the monitoring and maintenance of stormwater infrastructures. The operating budget allows road services to perform monitoring maintenance tasks such as water quality tests in storm pond, sludge test, camera inspection in our culverts, as well as fixing infrastructure such as catch basins, some small culverts that we find sometimes in parks, and clearing and maintaining ditches to ensure they flow as per design. Our operating budget currently does not include a cost for transfer to reserve to rehabilitate or to replace infrastructures. There are two major pieces of infrastructures that requires major funding that are beyond our regular operating budget, and for either rehabilitation or replacement. So they include our storm ponds and some of our major culverts we have in the city. Let's talk a bit about storm ponds. Public Works maintain 13 wet storm ponds. So these are the ones that have water in it. They are used to filter storm water from the sediments that are found in the streets, properties, or development. The result of their work is of a storm pond is a system. It provides cleaner waters discharge into the North Saskatchewan River. That's the goal of this system. Our maintenance program considers two types of storm ponds, some that are shallow, I would say about 6 feet deep, 6 to 8 feet deep, and the deep storm pond that are over 12 feet. In general, shallow storm ponds have less capacity to store sediments and should be rehabilitated after about 15 years. And again, this all depends sometime on the quality of water that we have and the flow of water as well. The average capacity loss of our shallow storm ponds in the city is about 43%. So if you ask where are we now with our storm ponds for the shallow one, the one that are about 60, they're about 43% full of sediments in average. Remediation is recommended at about 60% capacity loss, or when they're about 60% full, and when water quality is also deteriorating. Recent example of a shallow storm pond rehabilitation included the Allard Way Storm Pond Rehab, performed in 2021. And this is the one that you see on the picture here, just basically on the left. And this project was funded through the Financial Stabilization and Contingency Reserve. And this is a general reserve. And the cost was about $360,000 just to remove the sediments and then dispose of the sediments and basically put the area to its natural look. In general, deep storm ponds, and that's one you can see on the right of this presentation here on this slides. They have a little bit more capacity and they have basically less needs for rehabilitation. Overall, our deep storm ponds have an average capacity loss of about 11%. In other words, about 11% full of sediments there. So they're doing well. We should start looking at remediation of those deep storm ponds when we're about 30% capacity loss and when water quality is also deteriorating. We have not yet rehabilitated a deep storm pond to date, only a shallow one. A bit of discussion regarding culverts here. We have several in the city, and there's 10 that we felt that need a bit of attention in terms of replacement in the future. Others are, as I said, it's in the report. Some of our culverts are part of, let's say, the highway. So for us, we know if we have projects coming to, let's say, replace some of the highway, then they will be taken care of at that time. We have also some culverts that are in parks, and they're pretty small, actually, so they're not very expensive to replace, especially on the trails. So we have not put this into the formula, but we look at 10 of them that we said, okay, if we don't have money there, that's a bit problematic for us, right? So, so the major culvert and storm lines are inspected every 10 years to guide the maintenance, replacement timing, and the long-term capital plan. We also visually inspect those major culverts as needed. And the life cycle of a typical culvert is about 75 years. So we had to replace one, I believe it was in 2022, on Rage Road 224, and then the cost was about $440,000 to replace this culvert under a rural road. And this was financed through the Capital Project Reserve. So in relation to the overall maintenance, something I want just council to keep in mind, it's important to catch sand and street debris before entering the stormwater system. So part of the maintenance we do does that. So anything that has to do with spring cleaning, street sweeping, and catch basin cleaning, reduce sediment buildup in the system, and especially in the storm process. So it's much better to catch these things before it gets into the system and have an expensive rehabilitation program to remove sediments from a storm pond per se. So Public Works is planning ahead for stormwater infrastructure needs across 13 wet storm ponds and 10 major culverts. Working with our finance department, we are using asset life, rehabilitation timing, and cost estimates to guide a phased reserve funding approach with a proposed increase of $125,000 annually for over a 4-year period to reach about $500,000 a year by 2030. Setting aside reserve in an incremental way will position the city to fund future major stormwater projects. It provides a proactive and sustainable approach to funding future stormwater infrastructure, rehabilitation, and replacement. And this is where you will see and hear more about coming up at budget. So we are here to engage in the discussion, and if you have any question, more than happy to take those. So.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Richard. Congratulations on moving up to second place in the NHL bracket. That's great. The guy who was first place before, oh my gosh, what an overconfident guy. And so I really appreciate the fact that you're giving him a little bit of competition. That's awesome. Councillor Harris, you're up.
Richard, I understand the context of this report and I get it. Relative to the first stormwater management pond that we constructed back in the day for West Park with ultimately 2 outfalls coming into that one lake that then discharged into the stormwater, desolation area. The outfall at the, call it the end of the main pond was failing last year, I noticed. Has that been fixed? Because, it looked like you needed to bring in some pretty big riprap to deal with that. Has that been fixed?
Through the chair to Councillor Harris, so you're talking about the pipe that goes from the first pond there to the second?
Yeah, well, there's a weir, and ultimately you can
Yeah,
change
so there's
the
that pipe that goes in there, then there's a control weir, and then that goes over. We didn't suck that up. We went down and looked at it. Most of the time it's underneath water, and that's just to give the water movement underneath, so when it freezes. Beavers kind of like that, and they end up in that little house there. We end up trapping them out a couple times throughout the time in its life there. We looked at trying to pull it back in place, and for the gap that was there, it wasn't actually going to do much. That's not the outfall piece. That one actually never really outfalls.
Yeah, when I say outfall,
Yeah,
I mean out of the first pond,
Yeah.
if you will.
Yeah, for as soft as the ground was, and that when we went to look at it, we were probably going to do a bit more damage trying to hook a chain to it and suck it back in place. There would be a lot more to do to it. It is something we can look at in the future again. I do know. I got a report just today. Actually, we have to go down and add some material around the edges. A bit of the liners exposed from all the runoff from the hills. So we did that a couple of years ago, and we need to go do that again. So we're going to see if we can get some compost from where we take our material.
Yeah, it's evident that particular pond has been performing as we had designed it back in the day.
Yeah, actually, the water never really seems to get over to make it out to the river. It's evaporating more than it has.
It's percolating.
Yeah, it's that last piece there's kind of turned to grass where it used to hold water way back. So.
But it's good to see that more, because there's 3 steps down before you get to the point, 4 steps before you get down.
Yeah.
So that ultimately was designed that way, and I think that ultimately only under about a 1 in 200 year flood event did you get it to actually top off to the river.
And it can top off there all at once.
Have you done any bathospheric measurement on the stuff that's building up in that pond?
We did.
Yes, Councillor Harris. We've done some studies there for sludge, and then it depends. I mean, in the large unit that we have there, it's about 13% right now. So and this was built in 2001. So it's quite surprising to see how well it's holding there in terms of. But there's also a few little ones around that major unit. All right, and these ones they're more shallow, and we see them at 68%, 55%, and 40% in terms of sludge capacity. So it's. They're working very well, and again, they're about 25 years old right now, so it's pretty good.
Yeah. So you were talking about obviously street cleaning and doing those things that ultimately try to stop the infiltration of the stuff coming off the storm sewers in the streets. How's that working out? Because I think we now are allowing people to sweep their boulevards, like in front of my house. I was under the impression I can sweep my boulevard onto the street, and then you'll pick it up on the day that they come to clean the streets. Is that true?
It is. Through your chair to Councillor Harris, yes, through our spring sweep program, because anywhere we've plowed the snow up on the boulevards, residents are allowed to push that back off onto the street during the week of work coming. And it really makes it great that we can come around, we pick it all up, they get a nice clean neighborhood, and away we go. Once you get in the older part of town, we do get more debris from the trees and stuff like that. Once again, we accept that. And it really helps with collecting all that off the roads. I think this year we probably got a pile that's sitting around, my guess, over 2,000 cubes already or more. So
yeah, well, I think that's got to be good. Yeah. Like in these ones you've got in your presentation, those shallow stormwater. I guess the alternative, and this is my last question, the alternative, I guess, when the subdivisions were designed to have not gone with stormwater ponds and just gone with big pipes in the ground. It's the only other alternative, right? So there's more capital costs going in that instance than there would be here. So now we're seeing the offset in terms of asset management in relation to dealing with the things that you're coming for, and hence the need to build up a reserve to be able to do it in a timely manner. So, okay. All right, well, fair enough. That's more of an observation than anything else, but that was a decision that was made back in the day. And I think there were quite a few reasons because of the way South Fort was developing that ultimately caused that to happen. So, and it is what it is. So I think you guys are doing a good job, so keep it up. Thanks.
So, thank you. Councillor Rendoa, you jumped off and jumped on. Did you want your regular back to your spot?
Just seeing if you're paying attention.
Yeah, there you go. The all-seeing eye.
Point of order.
All right, go for it there, Councillor Rendoa.
Richard and team, thank you very much for the presentation. Really appreciate it. When I reviewed your presentation report, I see it kind of as two things. Like the first bucket is we just have to maintain these assets and set up a way to kind of fund that going forward. And the second is just maybe a discussion on these assets and how we kind of incorporate them into our communities. So on that first one, do we feel the 125,000 is enough? Like we'll do 125, I guess, this budget, and then another 125 and whatnot. So will that be enough, or is it maybe too much for that first phase?
To the chair, to Councillor Rondo, this is the calculation we came with, basically looking at, again, the asset itself, the cost of replacement, of the cost of rehabilitation as well, and the schedule of when we believe these will come up. So we know, especially pretty confident until 2035, that we have just under $2 million of work to be done, and this will get us there. That's for sure. And we see already some, especially on the sludge test point of view in the shallow storm ponds, we're getting very close to the 60% in some areas, and they are more like we were talking about the wetland with Councillor Harris, which is kind of far away from the houses, but these ones are very close to houses, and then we don't want to have the smells and everything else and the issues that comes with that. So we believe that the 125 over a period of 5 years to build the contribution up to 500,000 will get us to that 2035 easily. And will allow us to do that. It's our projections in terms of what we believe will be rehabilitated, what will need to be done, and the schedule. So there was some analysis on that part. So if you long story short, yes, we believe this is what is needed.
Okay, because from your report, it's about 1.9 million, let's say 2 million by 2035 total, but the 125 ongoing, it gives us like 3.7 million by the end of that time. So was there any thought of perhaps asking for less than like 100,000, or am I correct in that?
No,
a lot of this
we have to also look at the other projects coming up after 2035 and have enough money there to build for them as well. So maybe Kathy, Mrs. Sankoff can talk a little bit about the approach on calculating these.
Hi, yeah. Once we're just looking to establish this reserve, and once we have it building, then it will become part of our regular budget process, and we will establish an optimal balance. And every year we will include this in a part of our process to make sure that we're contributing enough on an annual basis to make sure that we have a sustainable growth.
Okay. Another question just surrounding like the $66 million. That's a big number. Do some of these ponds just fail then at some point? Like, what creates such a big number, or is it the growth of the city over the next 70 years and just the number of culverts and storm ponds?
Through the chair, to Councillor Rondo, the total amount, I mean, we're looking at a pretty long period of about 75 years. Yeah. So that's why you see such a great amount. And in the notes, for storm ponds, we don't have to rebuild them. We just have to rehabilitate those by basically emptying the water and removing the sediments and putting everything back. Right. So a typical project as a shallow one, I think we're going to be looking at about $500,000 each. deeper one could be more. So we have some estimates on that. But we know from the table that is presented in your report that a lot of the money comes in from 2076 to 2100. This is in the next century here. So basically $37 million of assets, mainly culvert, that will most likely have to be looked at that time. So and the tens that we discuss. And these are major ones, they're not small, and they're major project.
Okay.
So when you look at the costing of those 75 years from now, yeah, that's what you're looking at.
Last question then. I guess having storm ponds, there's a cost to this, to the taxpayer ongoing. Is there any alternatives as we look at planning new communities and whatnot that are more cost effective, or how do we look at this going forward? Like, do we look at just deeper storm ponds rather than shallower ones if the maintenance is different? Have we looked at that at all, I guess?
Through the chair, Brian, do you want to speak a little bit about what we see now in terms of the change in the storm ponds?
Through your chair to Councillor Wandala. It is through we still have a short time of experience with this with our community. Like we were lucky enough, most of our stuff discharged to the river with our older developments. And then as we got away from that, you've got to be able to control that. And you can't just give all that to the next development and expect those pipes don't have to be upsized. So you're trying to move water from the very south somewhere. So part of that now is through evaporation, right? You're managing that water, you're holding it, and then it's evaporating back into the environment, and you're cleaning it up through that process. If we have to move it further down the road, then you move it from a pond to another pond, to a creek, to something that leads further down, but really you're still holding on to the volume of it. Through our limited experience, because we are still young with them, yes, a deeper pond would be a better thing. We've sat through the developments, through planning and development, talked about ponds that are coming up, talked about the shapes of them, talked about what we've learned from other communities because they're in the same boat as us. You know, they're still learning some of these things. I'm not saying the shallower ponds aren't a bad thing. It depends on the service area. It's the size of the service area, and truly, at the very beginning of that pond's life, how clean was that neighborhood when they're doing their construction that they didn't give you all the sediment off the roads to begin with. So that's also part of it, is to have a bathymetric done on those ponds before we take them over.
Okay.
So we have a better idea as to what they're at. So it's a mix. You got to have a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You know, for me, yeah, deeper pond is nice. You get a nice clear water. You deal with a little less algae. You deal with a bit more growth on the edges. So it is, you know, I don't profess to be the expert. That's why there is planners and engineers.
Awesome.
Just get to look at it afterwards.
Thank you very much. Makes sense.
Awesome. Thank you, Councillor Randella. Off to Councillor Blizzard. There we go.
Thanks for the presentation and all the information, and I certainly see that we need to keep them up. But when I was looking at the amounts, I'm like 66 million. That's a pool. Jeez. They are big numbers. Even the annual $500,000 is a chunk. But yeah, we'll look at that during budget. If the amount gets adjusted or not. I do have a couple of questions. So. Storm ponds, I get them and they're nice. If you happen to live on the back onto one, they're nice to have. What do you call the areas that aren't, I don't know if they'd be under our storm ponds, but they're like a grassy area. And one that comes to mind is West Park Boulevard and West Park, I don't even drive, I think it is, by Friesen, right across where they toboggan in the winter. But I've seen storms where that's got they're canoeing on or kayaking because it's got quite a bit of water.
Yeah, so through your chair to Councillor Blizzard. So those are more of a dry pond, so they're more for your high weather events. So you get a large dump, that water needs to go somewhere, so you're going to take it off the street, you're going to transfer it somewhere. But the neighborhood itself doesn't need a sustained pond to keep its forever, like average rainflows. So what'll happen is it'll flood the area. Part of that's going to go saturate to the ground, and then part of it's going to move. You'll notice a lot of those will have a intake and an outtake. So you'll have a pipe on one end, pipe on the other, so it's going to flood up, and then it's going to slowly migrate across and then allow it into the system. What it does is it slows that water down from overwhelming the downstream system.
Okay, we shouldn't need to do maintenance on that.
There is maintenance. Honestly, it's the grass cutting and stuff like
Yeah,
that. The
for
one off
sure.
the end of the T intersection by the spray park turned itself into a nice little forest. Just
True.
because it truly hasn't flooded up. It gets damp and a heavy rain, but it hasn't flooded. So, you know, we've been watching it, looking at it, and seeing what it's doing, and it's created a nice little forest there, and it's actually doing well. The one off the end there, you're talking by Friesens, same thing. It does get damp. And over Forest Ridge, there was a section where the water does keep coming in, so it's started to grow a bit of a marsh on it. So Parks just cuts up to it, and we're letting that just naturalize.
Not bad either. Is this a newer regulation? Because I know, I live in West Park, older area now, and there's no storm ponds, and you were just saying it goes out to the river. So number one, is that a newer regulation? And also, those older pipes, do they get sand silt in them that we have to kind of auger them out somehow?
Yeah. So where you're at actually does end up in the pond area down where Mr. Harris is talking about. It works its way over. Kind of east of that more is the old Sheridan, Low Avenue, all that stuff. It is direct discharge into the creeks. There are old agreements in place that were approved by Alberta Environment from way back. You can't add a pond into a bank of a hill. So we do maintenance on all those pipes. We have our catch basin cleaning program we do every year. We hydrovac so many catch basins. So catch basin on the street is basically built, if you think of a cup, halfway down the cup you put a pipe out. So when the sand comes, it's going to settle in the lowest part of the catch basin, and then it doesn't run down the pipe. So we keep up on cleaning those catch basins because that's where your heaviest solids are. So we'll go around, we clean those. We do about 100 a year. We've moved into a 6-year playing with rotation for cammering and inspecting of the storm lines. So we keep up on looking to make sure that they're in shape. We've got 2 catch basins right now we're actually doing. One's on 87th Street, 87th Street, 99th Ave. We had a little bit of a pipe failure, and we have another one over in Bridgeview. So these are items that we've noticed that we look after through our operational budget. So we do camera, we do clean. If there's a need for flushing gets a little more expensive because it is sand. So you might have the sand sitting there. Will it stay there or will it move to the next pond? So we do a bit of flushing with that. So we play within our budget at the end of the year for that to make sure we've got room for the inspections part to catch the bad stuff.
So, but West Park, those ponds you were talking about, that I remember them going in, so they weren't here 30 years ago. So what happened before that? Is there these catch basins? Is that?
Yeah, well, no, there was a discharge that goes out to the river.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then this was added after that, the
Correct.
catch basins.
Yeah. As developments have come, it's your rules have changed through life, and you put them on.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Councillor Noyan, you're up.
Thank you. Glad to see this before us. Just because it wasn't clear, very simple question to me during the presentation and the report. Would this proposal apply to any under roadway stormwater pipe whatsoever? Or is that all encompassed in our neighborhood rehabilitation to replace it? So we're just looking at stormwater ponds and culverts for this reserve fund. That's correct.
Through the chair to Councillor Noyan, that's correct. So basically, we're looking at about at this time what we capture is 13 of our stormwater pond and 10 culverts that we felt that needs to be looked at, and they were in a category that we knew we were not going to get some replacement soon. Let's say as I said, maybe we retrofitting the highway and we can do something there. So we did not consider those, or the small ones that we have in parks. Or there's also I think we had 2 already in the budget, in the capital budget. So we did not include those one as well because they're already planned for. So we look at the ones that were not planned and we said, okay, we need to pay attention to those 10.
Okay, my confusion lied in the term like major stormwater pipe. Like, there's some linear footage of that, but that's encompassed in the culverts then.
Yeah, and I will just go back to this picture here. That's what we're talking about here.
Okay, perfect. That's a great visual. Thanks. And then a financial question. So storm ponds operating, culverts capital. So new. The new reserve that's being established will I guess it'll only apply to these portions then, and like Councillor Blizzard was saying, to new inventory that we don't have yet in new developments. That's correct. Okay.
That's correct. And then as we are moving forward with, in the future, there will be a need to adjust potentially these contribution, because we will get new development, we will get new storm ponds. I know there's 3 coming up in the next 10 to 15 years for sure. So and then there will be more stormwater infrastructure as well. We're going to have to keep looking at and also adjusting our game here.
Yeah, excellent. I think they're fairly large stormwater ponds that are going in ASPs.
Yep.
And I believe, just a previous conversation about depth of ponds, I believe I asked that question to Grant at some point in time, and he said that there is maybe not a new requirement, but the depth was being discussed, and it would be applied, much deeper, so we can address the sediment issue. So that's good to see this happening. So thank you very much.
Okay, awesome. I have a couple of questions. In the presentation, it was noted that the shallow pond average capacity loss of 43%, and there's a 60% remediation. Now, average suggests there's some above and some below. Are there many of those ponds that are pretty close to that 60% level?
Yeah, there's 2 of them right now. There's one that is located in the wetland that was built in 2001. There's a small little pocket of water there that it's not the major one, because we have a larger, deeper area there but we have, as I said, 2 or 3 that are just around, and one of them is at about 68%. So we're going to have to look at that. But it's also a question of priority. Is it working well? Is there an issue with residents and things like that? But because of its location right now, I think that we can still keep monitoring and see the need. But one day we're going to have to go out there and then start to remove some of the sediments to bring it back. Normally you're looking at every 15 years, and this one has been 25 years doing very well. So we're going to look at it. And there's another one that we're looking at now, and it's just if I remember well, in the 40% range now in terms of being full, and it's something we're going to have to look at most likely in 2030. That's one that that will be one of our next rehab on a storm pond in 2030. So there's and the location, if I remember well, is in the remember we named some new parks after people, and one is Truscott Park, and the other one will be the Walter Buck Park. So it's right beside the Walter Buck Park. That's one of them that we're gonna have to look at. Yeah.
Awesome. So probably nothing to be surprised about in the budget 2027 conversations then? Just so that I know.
Trying not to bring any surprise to the budget. What we're trying to do is good planning, and at the end, I mean, when we have to do the work like we have done in the past, like in 2021 and 2022, to replace some of those assets or do some rehab, then we have to do it. And it's a question of where do we go in terms of funding. So we believe that a prudent way and a good way to look at this is to plan ahead and to have the funding in place so we can execute that work without impacting other reserves or the tax.
Okay. So, maybe just another question here. I'm trying to keep track. When in the past, so that I understand what we've done, we've typically drawn these remediations from just a reserve of some sort, right? Once we have this reserve established and funded, is the intention for us to then start pulling those projects from those reserves instead of some other unrelated reserves? Is that our long-term goal on all
Through the
this?
chair, that's exactly the purpose, is to, for those items that we identified in a reserve, that are listed in a reserve, the 13 storm ponds, and there will be in the future 14, 15, and 16 coming up in the next, I'll say 10 years, depending on the development. And then if we see that there's a additional culvert that we need to add to the inventory, then yeah, the purpose is to target these and not having to go to other reserves. So it has its own reserve.
Okay, and just trying to get it at a, because I can't help myself. I have to ask sort of a stats related question. So when you look at, I think it was in the package there, street sweeping and catch basin cleaning, and they're important kind of factors to extending pond life. Is there any kind of quantitative data on the relationship between how often we do that and the rate of sediment accumulation?
Through your chair.
You pushed that button so quickly with such excitement and glee in your eyes. I'm
He's
very
going to look at
happy.
me anyways. Through your chair. We don't have that total relation other than, you know, the volumes that we can look back on and give you numbers for what we collected through catch basin cleaning program. We have that, we get billed for the disposal, so I can get those weights, you know, through our street sweeping program. When we dispose of it at Roseridge or wherever we take it, we pay per scale. So we get, like, you know, tons of material that wasn't allowed into the storm system. I'm not saying it's not just going to sit in that pipe for the next 5 years because it just settled out. And I'm not saying which neighborhood it truly came from. So it's a holistic look at what we as a community have kept from getting into the environment, the creek, the river, or a storm pond, or something like that. So it's a holistic look at what volumes we've not let settle out. And part of that is, you know, the leaf debris. And the fall time, we go and try to sweep up the leaves from the neighborhoods that have big trees. So you're not getting that material going down into a storm pond or going into the storm system, starting to decompose, starting to cause you dirt and stuff that's in there. So it's a holistic look.
So when we look at the street sweeping program, the cost of that versus the cost of digging out that sediment out of a pond, it's probably significantly different. I would assume the pond remediation being much higher.
It would be, because that's your end part of it. You want your catch basins to catch part of that.
Yeah.
So part of that is how much, you know, you're sucking out of your catch basin. That, you know, your catch basin can now go 2 years instead of having to do it every year. You spend more time and effort trying to get out of the catch basin than you do just zipping down the street, picking it off the street.
Right.
Right. So it's the street, the catch basin, the pipes, then the pond.
Okay. Awesome.
Through the chair, a bit of a story here, if you don't mind.
No, go for it.
Had a chance to discuss storm pond and catch basin and sand and all those things during a conference in Toronto, talking to a contractor that basically built a portion of the highway in Toronto, and they had to maintain it as well. So it was a build and operate type of agreement they had with the city of Toronto. And basically, I was surprised when he was telling me that they sweep their portion of the highway that they maintain pretty much every week. And I asked why. And they said, well, basically, you don't see the sediment going into the storm pond, and it's more cost effective for them as a business to sweep the highway every week than having to go in the storm pond and remove all those sediments from the water and go through this whole process. So for a business, it was more cost effective that way. So that was interesting to learn that, and that we do something similar here.
And do we do it often enough, do you think, or?
Through your chair. So we have our major spring sweep program, which comes as soon as the snow lets us. And we go through the whole town, and we actually keep sweeping throughout the summer. So we'll sweep the downtown core, we'll sweep through the industrial, the highway section we need to keep sweeping just because of the traffic for the trucks. Anywhere that we take note through our weekly inspections or weekly drive that we've got a gravel buildup or something like that. The intersection down towards dog tricks on the highway, you get all the trucks coming out, so we get gravel pulled out, so we sweep that up. Mm-hmm. So it's also not just for that, it's also for, we want to keep the intersections of the highway safe, that somebody doesn't get a rock flipped up at them. So it's more than just that with our street sweeping program after the spring, but it's a benefit all year long.
In my example as well, we're talking about a very major, very busy highway in Toronto that had a lot of debris coming from the traffic. So a bit different than our residential streets or what we see here. 4 to 6 lane on each side and something major. So.
Councilor Randhawa, did you have a question? You had popped up and popped off? Okay. Then I have maybe one last question. In the report, it noted that culverts beneath highways 15 and 21 are excluded because they are expected to be addressed through the Veterans Way widening project. So let's say hypothetically that project is delayed. What would be the potential funding source if we had to repair those and it wasn't part of that project?
So a very short answer on this. If it's not listed in the reserve that we are setting up, then it will have to be funded by another reserve.
Okay.
So,
Kathy, you look like you want to say something. So
To the chair, it would likely be through capital projects reserve or grant funding, or we just put it into the capital plan and
Okay.
treat it similar to any other project that we would at the time.
okay, awesome. I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you very much for your presentation, all your information, your time, extensiveness of your answers. Appreciate that. Take care. We all good to keep going? All right. Do you want a break?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, we're good. All right. All right. Okay. It's just yeah, exactly. Welcome, Shri. Welcome, Lindsay. Lindsay, the current NHL bracket #1. Congratulations. A hockey shark as well as a planning aficionado. It's good. You don't see those combined too often, or maybe you do. I don't know. Shri, how are you good at picking hockey? Not so good. Okay, so maybe you're an anomaly. Anyway, so you're here to talk to us about the land use bylaw process. So.
Yes, thank you. So good afternoon, Chair Wesley and Committee of the Whole. My name's Lindsay Butterfield. I'm your Director of Planning and Development. And with me to answer questions today is Shri Shinde, Manager of Current and Long Range Planning. So today we're going to discuss some of the concepts and structure that underlie the new land use bylaw, which is nearing completion. There will be future opportunities as well to dive into some of the details of the regulations. So we will take multiple conversations as directed by this body. This land use bylaw is unique, and I want to assure the committee that today's presentation is meant to bring out a conversation so that we can inform the way we finalize the draft bylaw. And we want to make sure we understand your perspectives in the service of providing you with the best information and everything that you need to make decisions as this moves forward. Okay, so starting at the start, what is a land use bylaw? Why do we need one? What are we talking about? And my apologies if this does feel like review for anyone, but I feel that I need to go through it. So under the MGA, starting at section 640, if you're so inclined, every municipality in Alberta must pass a land use bylaw. This is a complex policy document. It tells us what can be built in the city, where can it be built, what are the conditions under which it can be built and approved. So this sets the stage for the form that the community takes and works in tandem with other regulatory frameworks like engineering standards, other policy documents, and bylaws. The origins of zoning lie in public health, when it was noted that workers living near factories during the Industrial Revolution fell ill more often than people who lived far away from the factories. So for a couple of 100 years now, we've been separating uses, and that's been the focus of zoning and urban planning. However, more recently, and I'd say really over the last decade in particular, there's been a real move away from trying to have strict separations of everything from each other. And the current understanding is that neighborhoods that provide a range of some commercial, some institutional development, near or integrated with residential areas that contain a mix of different types of housing, leads to better health outcomes and bolsters the social fabric of communities. So the draft land use bylaw follows that approach. I will note, though, that especially here in Fort Saskatchewan, it's really important that we're still mindful of where separation is necessary. We need to protect people and residences, but we also need to secure the interests of longstanding investments by maintaining appropriate distances between homes and heavy industry. All right, so this draft land use bylaw has taken a neighborhood-based approach. The bylaw introduces more flexibility with controls contained in our neighborhood structure plans, and that is that more types of buildings will be allowed within districts because they're intended to cover an area similar to an NSP or even an ASP. The locations for different types of buildings will be specific to the district because the fundamental premise is that any development needs to match what is already planned for or already built in a given area of the city. So you can see on this slide some images from your report showing an example of how this looks in our MDP. So that's the figure in the middle, the sketchy looking graphic there. And that's a photo example on the right of Griesbach in Edmonton, which has a similar gradient and feel for what we're seeing in newer neighborhoods and what's being requested. With, perhaps a more intense node that might contain some commercial development, some parks, some schools. On busy roads, we'll see apartment buildings, maybe some townhouse developments. And then as we get down to local roadways, the housing mix is lower density, could incorporate detached dwellings and duplexes. But ultimately, what is allowed considers the design of the neighborhood first, and then the type of building that makes sense. So ideally, a land use bylaw will reinforce the direction set out in the municipal development plan. And in our case, the MDP specifically directed administration to develop a new land use bylaw. Further, the MDP provides policy guidance that tells us our regulations should reflect the unique qualities of the various areas of Fort Saskatchewan. So a lot of time was spent by administration understanding different neighborhoods across the city, talking to people to understand what they liked about where they live, and looking at how neighborhood design has evolved over time here to influence the way each neighborhood looks and feels today. Another reason for updating the bylaw is to create more predictable zoning in neighborhoods rather than create direct control or special districts. The existing land use bylaw has outlived its usefulness in meeting current market demands for new homes, and a flexible zoning approach that allows more types of development in districts but in specific locations should reduce the amount of administrative process while still ensuring that new subdivisions follow neighborhood structure plans as adopted by City Council. So you can see here an area illustrated that's in South Fort. The current bylaw has resulted in the image on the left showing a patchwork of different districts in blue outline, including 3 direct controls and 1 special district. The proposed zoning in the draft land use bylaw will result in the map on the right. So the area noted in yellow as collector location has different regulations in that district to allow for development appropriate at that location, but not appropriate on the surrounding local roadways. Again, whatever is built here will follow the direction of the neighborhood structure plan. So going just a little bit more detailed into the districts, there are 2 different types of districts proposed in the draft bylaw. Standard districts, which is the top part of the slide here, are similar to what we have now in the current land use bylaw. For those districts, there's a recognition that some small tweaks to the bylaw were needed, but generally things were working fairly well, and a more integrated district was not required. However, the lower half of this slide shows comprehensive districts, and these are the ones that I've been talking about and referencing in terms of following the neighborhood planning approach. They allow a mix of different dwelling types with businesses and institutional uses that are part of a complete community. So you can see in that bottom table a list of Fort Saskatchewan neighborhoods on the left side, and then on the right, the new district that will apply to them. I'll show an example of each right away here and describe how those work in existing neighborhoods over the next slides. So starting with the Pineview district, this is an example of the comprehensive district. The neighborhood has been fully developed for decades, and for that reason, the draft regulations are intended to preserve what is already there. That includes a broad mix of uses from detached dwellings and duplexes to townhouse developments, institutional nodes with schools, and a commercial area. So the various sub-areas on the district, noted in different colors on the map, reinforce that existing character with the types of buildings allowed. So Pineview North, for example, has taller two-story dwellings compared to the rest of Pineview. Sites located along the main collector road for the neighborhood will have regulations that allow for incremental intensification, such as duplexes, as an example. The nodes will continue to allow townhousing, which exist in two separate developments already. And then in addition to reinforcement of the existing neighborhood form, the look and feel of the current area will be further regulated through enhanced design for new buildings. And that includes specific requirements for roof lines, exterior finishes, and other visual elements of design. Moving to the draft estate district, which is a standard district in the bylaw. As you can see from the map shown here, it includes three distinct areas. There's Point-au-Pins Estates, South Fort Estates, and Clover Park Estates. Even though they're geographically distinct, these all share the same characteristics, so it made sense to draft one district for them rather than three separate districts. The regulations in the draft are designed to maintain the existing development as it is, with only a few types of development allowed. The standard districts by their nature are less flexible than the comprehensive districts. So there's no accompanying opportunity to redevelop differently or to include, commercial or some other type of thing in these neighborhoods. Okay, so I've talked a lot about the neighborhood planning approach, but the other significant change in the draft bylaw is that the bylaw will no longer regulate uses. Instead, the regulated component will be built form. So that is essentially the building itself. A built form can be a detached dwelling, a built form can be an apartment building, or as you can see from the examples here, a built form can be a strip mall or a large-scale retail center. When you look for the permitted or discretionary list in every district, you will find the built form listed. So either there's a permitted built form in a specific location, such as, a strip mall on an arterial road, or that same strip mall might be discretionary on a collector road, and that is how you will see them appear. The purpose for which the built form exists, which traditionally would be listed as the use in the bylaw, will be referred to as an activity. Activities are listed within the definition of each built form and as such are inherently allowed to take place. So you can see here that the examples that are provided list a wide range of activities under the specific built form. So if an applicant were to come in to, again, build a strip mall, they would require one permit for the built form, and subsequent permits for each of the businesses locating there would not be required. I'll go through a couple of other examples of built forms. So here we have light industrial and commercial office with their accompanying activities. The intention with this approach is to reduce the number of permits required for development that we're already expecting to see or that we want to encourage in specific locations. The permits issued for each built form will still point to regulatory requirements to mitigate nuisances, make sure that everything is in place that's needed, ensure that residents are protected from heavy industrial zones and that sort of thing. And I will note that business licenses and building permits will still be required, but this proposed approach does eliminate the need for development permits in existing built forms. A great deal of engagement has taken place over the course of this project, culminating in 7 open houses held in March and ending April 1st of this year. A wide variety of approaches to engagement were taken, including walking tours, presentations, workshops, questionnaires, and open houses. A summary of all of that engagement has been compiled and provided as an appendix in this report, and that is taken from all of the very detailed engagement reports for each unique event. As you're probably aware, that input and engagement has been an important factor in shaping the draft that's nearing completion and led to changes to reflect what residents want to see in their neighborhoods, as well as feedback from business owners, land developers and builders, and other key community stakeholders. So in terms of where we are at with completing the draft for formal presentation and first reading at council, we are close. We have some critical pieces to complete. So the draft is scheduled to have all of the input from the engagement incorporated this month, as well as edits based on advice from our solicitors. From there, the complete draft will be circulated for a final legal review, as well as a technical edit to make sure that our formatting, graphics, everything's consistent, everything is appearing how it should in the bylaw. Committee will note that a sample feedback form is provided as an appendix for reference for how we might collect input from you. Once the completed draft is prepared and we can share it with you, we'll launch the feedback tool as well. So please don't use it quite yet. We want to make sure you have the completed draft before you start reviewing. Once those steps are finished, the design document will be brought forward for first reading, public hearing, and subsequent readings, and is intended to go into effect January 1, 2027. I do want to note before I close that a land use bylaw, even after adoption, is a living document. That means amendments can be made with council approval. And as with any significant regulatory change, we will monitor to ensure that the intended outcomes are being achieved and to make adjustments as needed or as applicants come forward. So with that, really looking forward to committee's questions and thoughts on this approach with the land use bylaw. Shri and I are here to field all of your questions and provide whatever context you're looking for. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And thank you for all the hard work that you and your department put into getting all that feedback. That is no small feat. So congratulations on that. Councillor Blizzard has some great questions for you though.
Maybe. Thanks for the presentation, and I totally agree. This land use bylaw process has been quite lengthy, and a lot of good and bad issues with it, and overall I think it's come out pretty good. I think you've dealt with some of the areas that were a big, I would say, I guess, problem for a lot of people, I think has been dealt with. And if he's watching, I think John McMillan sure got some of the Pineview people, first of all, asking questions, and then I think he helped them also see what the city was working towards. So hopefully if he feels better, so does the rest of that area. I do have some questions though, and while it looks like a lot of engagement, as I was going through, and a lot of mine is questions on this public engagement, you know, I always say to people, when they come back and they say, well, the city never listens, it's very interesting when we're seeing this, and we're seeing the Fringe downtown had 1,200 people invited to give some feedback. We had 5 forms. So we are now have a summary for 5 forms. Another one here is, you know, there was 3. So all of a sudden, you know, it looks like we have overall a lot, but in some areas it's very small. And I struggle with, you know, do you listen to that one person that might have one little niche complaint? I mean, it's good to have it listed, but I think we have to also look at, you know, how important is every little thing on it. And I'm not trying to belittle anything, but anyway, just a comment. So what are the internal stakeholders? And I'm going, I think it was listed on page 7, but it was also, I think, listed in a few others. Internal stakeholders, are those the developers? Is it residents? Who do we call an internal stakeholder?
Through Mr. Chair to Councillor Blizzard, internal stakeholders are city departments.
Oh, it's city departments. Okay, not just, okay. And one of the things listed under, and I think it was that page 7 again, said, you know, we have to make sure that we have enough for snow removal. Honestly, you know, I've said this from the day I moved to Fort Saskatchewan. I can't believe we don't have more snow storage along streets. You know, the new subdivisions, none of them have boulevards. It's very costly for snow removal, which puts it on more taxpayers, which is me, among all of us that live here. We should be looking at what are we doing with our snow in the winter. I don't know if you can run a tracer system through and have it all melt. I'd be happy with that, but that's not going to happen. But removing it all is expensive. Anyway, just a comment. On page 10, it mentions signs restrictive. How is our signage, allowed signage restrictive? It's just a comment made again from one, I'm assuming from a stakeholder. I don't know what they're looking for, but they want to be able to have, you know, various signs up all over the place.
Through Mr. Chair to Councillor Blizzard, just going from my memory, but I think this comment is about probably certain business owners from the city has communicated to someone internal that there should be more signage permitted, and that's the comment is getting reflected in this feedback.
Oh, okay. I looked up on page 11 what aquaponics is because they've never heard of it. But I mean, that's an interesting thing to add. I just, some of it wasn't explained very well, but I guess if you're not into that. But having said that, if you're not into it, sometimes you don't know what we're allowing. You know, city council approves something and we're like, well, I saw aquaponics, I didn't know, and I just kept going. You know, we should maybe be explained what some of this stuff is that's being asked for. Also asking for compacted gravel. Maybe I'm putting too much weight into the one survey, but I think sometimes we do listen to the one single voice that comes out with questions. Anyway, I guess that's just my overall comments. We had lots of engagement in the estate districts because there was issues there. We had lots in Pineview, but some of the other ones, certainly we did not get all that much feedback. And so, you know, the numbers, it was interesting. They're saying, okay, we got 5 forms, so 80% agree. Well, 80% of 5 forms is 4 people. Maybe we're positive on some of the aspects. Anyway, I think that's all I have. I really don't have any more questions. So,
awesome. Thank you, Councillor Blizzard, for using a little bit of math in your explanation. Always appreciated. Mayor Macon, it's your turn.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. I really love the way that, I know this has been a tough project, but I really love the way that it's unfolded in the end for council. And I look forward to, you know, when that draft is finally ready, to spending many a day going through that, that document. I do have a question about how that document pertains to the new commercial center on the highway that we're discussing. We'll call it the Pineview Commercial because that's what it keeps getting referred to as. But it's not in the Pineview area. There's no access to it from Pineview. So technically it's not Pineview. So, and it's not in any of these districts that you've created. So where does it fall? Where do we see that landing once council debates?
Through Mr. Chair to Mayor Macon, that particular area will still remain the direct control district. So that is not in the Pineview district or not in the highway commercial because it just has a very different regulations compared to what's in the other comprehensive or standard district. So we are keeping 4 or 5 direct control districts and this is one of them.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for that. And may I ask a question particular to one of the districts that just came up as I was reviewing these ones, if you don't mind? So I know there was a lot of commentary on the estate district and what should and should not be allowed. What I found interesting is in the site coverage category. So it's maximum of 464 square meters for anything over 0.4 hectares, which I think makes sense in Pointe-aux-Pins and the estate lots area. But in Clover Park, what you're saying on kind of above that is max 35% for all buildings and structures on those properties. But for the average size in Clover Park, that actually works out to less than 5%. By saying it can only go up to a maximum of this for lots greater than 0.4, I'd actually suggest most lots in there go above that percentage already. And so I don't know if that has actually been looked at or calculated out to actually see like what the impact is on that area.
Through Mr. Chair to Mayor Macon, that number hasn't changed. We did not change that regulation. The reason being it's a unserviced area, and so we are keeping the built form to the minimal, have more open space rather than having more built area. So it seems like based on what's built, that area is still not being used to its maximum potential. So people are not building to 464 or whatever that number is. So we didn't feel the need of increasing that.
Okay, I'll think a little bit more about that one. That's all I got for now. Great job.
Okay, awesome. Councillor Nguyen, you're up.
Yeah, thanks for this. No questions on Pie View. It seems everything's hunky dory. But then aside to that is congratulations on all the work. I think it's 4 years that have been leading up to this point, and yes, you've done an extreme amount of legwork to get us to this point, and the amount of public engagement we've seen is unprecedented. But it's great to see kind of a simplified form of this and to talk about it at committee of the whole to gain our understanding and get the gears moving for when we actually are able to review the draft. My concerns had to do with a comment that was made pertaining to the estate district as well. The South Forest Estates, Point of Pins, Clover Park are not only geographically distinct areas, but they have a very different character. We're built in different eras. There are comparisons you could make to Point and Pins and Clover Park, whereas, South Forest Estates was an internally planned community, a neighborhood within Fort Saskatchewan, whereas Clover Park and Point of Pins outlined areas. They comprise of a lot larger pockets. The comment that you made was that there are, they are estates and they're going to be considered the same district. I do find that an interesting decision. I would kind of like to know the rationale behind it and potentially the conversations that planning has had in dividing them to address the unique characteristics of each of these neighborhoods that were established at very different times in Fort Saskatchewan's history. So I do see some value myself on separating them into their own districts, but maybe you can really convince me that they shouldn't be, or otherwise if it's still up for debate.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything is still up for discussion. I would say, though, that if you look at the district closely, there are distinctions between the three neighborhoods in terms of what the regulatory requirements are. I think when I stated that they're similar, it was in terms of wanting to preserve that single detached large home on a large lot character of those neighborhoods. So, for example, if you look at the minimum site areas, if you look at the site coverage, which was just referred to, you'll see that there are distinctions between the three in those. And so I appreciate your point, and I think that was taken into account when the district was developed. I will let Ms. Shindy continue.
Yes, and through Mr. Chair to Councillor Nguyen, I would only add one thing to it. Like even in terms of uses that are permitted and are discretionary, there is distinction between what's allowed in Clover Park versus South Fort Estates. So the differences between these three neighborhoods have been taken into consideration, but just in terms of the format of their district itself, how it needed to be, there was a lot of similarity there. So we were able to do it within one district, but still distinguish where the differences were needed to be addressed.
Yeah, and I understand the objective, or part of the objective of the LUB project is to streamline the permitting approach, and so categorizing with. So it's essentially how council should think of this is subcategories for discretionary use per neighborhood, and obviously they're listed individually. So just for confirmation, on detached dwellings, then the ones that are allowed in or that are proposed to be discretionary in South Fort and Point of Pins estates remains unchanged from our existing land use bylaw. That's correct. So after all the public engagement, I'm sure you heard this or read this feedback extensively, but that is going to remain unchanged. So that's something that can be communicated to the residents of these areas.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. That's good enough for me right now, and continue digesting this as we go.
Awesome. Thank you. Councillor Harris.
So I assume it's safe to say that you've been trying, or the planning department, starting with Craig when he was here, and now obviously through Lindsay, are trying to pursue a bit of a more of a novel approach to development of a land use bylaw. Is that fair to say?
Councillor Harris, I'd say that's fair. It's unique. Yeah.
Good. So it's an evolution of planning that we've seen over the last 40 years or so, and ultimately it's brought us to this point. Is there anything that you can suggest, or are you contemplating or planning to do relative to when we move to the public hearing process, following first bylaw, to try to encourage as much broad involvement of the public and interest in the public, so that they can come and feel that they've had the opportunity to suggest they actually had a good opportunity. Notwithstanding, and everything that's been done to date, I think, has been very positive, because it has allowed people to have their input. Are you contemplating anything unique or different that we haven't seen before, or that hasn't been seen or done before?
And that is, do you mean in terms of getting people to the public hearing? Just to clarify for me, Councillor Harris.
Yeah. In relation to the public hearing, the process, typically when, council calls a public hearing and we obviously start the input process, you look at what the city of Edmonton has had to go through, and the many days and hours that they've had to get through that. Is there anything that we're contemplating that's different than what we've contemplated in the past?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a couple of things. One is that we want to make sure that people understand what happened with their feedback. And so making sure that there is a line to, here's the feedback that was captured and here's what was done as a result of that to make a change. That's something that's critical and that we're considering. The other piece is really trying to get feedback from council in advance, and so that appendix that has a sample of what a feedback form could be, it'll allow us to be really transparent without necessarily having a conversation here in chambers, so that if there's a grammar error or just something that needs to be clarified that's a quick answer, that we can provide that in advance and it can be published as part of the public hearing as well.
Okay.
So those are a couple of ideas. In terms of getting people to participate in planning policy conversations, it's always a challenge, as you've already noted, in terms of how much advertising versus participation. We encourage people to come out, and we will look at different ways to do that as well.
Okay, do we anticipate more than, say, one particular public hearing session? Or, I mean, from what we've been hearing thus far, and typically most people are of the opinion that if it's not going to impact me in my backyard, I'm happy, just let it happen. But obviously we've generated a fair amount of interest. But would you anticipate more than just one typical multi-hour public hearing process?
Through Chair Wesley to Councillor Harris, I am usually very bad at predicting what's going to happen in a council meeting, so I don't know if this is
just
a fair
really
question.
good at hockey, right?
But what I would say is that I think my discussions with the team, and Shri can confirm this maybe after I finish my response, my discussions with the team is that there's been a real change in the temperature as far as the public open houses that I was able to attend a couple months ago versus what things had been like in the past. And so I think that is a direct result of people feeling that they have been heard and that their feedback has been considered. But Ms. Shindy, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Through your worship, through Mr. Chair to Councillor Harris, only thing I would add is once we advertise the public hearing, the social media will give us the impression, like what people are thinking about and how they are feeling. Even after being transparent, things could get misunderstood, and those are the things beyond our control. So, as Lindsay said, we can't predict it, but we can definitely watch and monitor.
Yeah, well, I guess my comment is that it would be interesting to see if there was a novel and unique way that never been done before to ensure that we can get as much input. But I think what the department has done to this point in time, and with the input we got from from Mr. McMillan today, I think that ultimately does show that that there has been an opportunity to listen to concerns. And as you say, it's a unique and it's a live, living document, and I would anticipate that as long as we see it in that context, it's not one and done. It's an ongoing process, and this is the next stage. So good work, and thanks for listening to everybody.
I'll maybe just add one thing, if I might, which is that we do have the opportunity to meet with our communications team in June, and this is one of the things on the list of to-dos is how do we talk to people in terms of getting them to public hearings and share that information so that it's transparent and like bite-sized and easy to access.
There's the topic of a good planning PhD thesis. There you go.
Bite-sized public hearing, sorry.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you, Councillor Harris. I have a couple of texted questions from Councillor Ketcher, although she's physically not here. She is always with us. In spirit. Sorry. The fringe areas downtown that don't support adding townhouses. I mean, could you maybe address their concerns, or what was the thinking for the townhouses and so on?
It's 100th Street, right?
I think so.
To Mr. Chair, there were, I don't remember the exact number, but some people did provide that comment that there shouldn't be townhouses and apartments in the downtown fringe area. However, along this certain portions of the major collector and minor collector, we have proposed that. Some of that is to respect the existing rights of that area. So that is not the new provision, and the some areas we are taking a relook at. So that feedback is under consideration.
Okay, awesome. Second question. Temporary spider signs that are not temporary and just get renewed. Is there any address to that, or just how would you answer that question?
I know that there, through to the chair, Chair Wesley, there is a significant change in the sign regulations. There's much more limited types of signs that will be allowed. I don't have a specific answer about the spider signs.
Okay.
I could add to it. So we are simplifying signage sections significantly rather than having 8-10 different kinds of signages. These are all now freestanding signs, and we are regulating them based on if you are on Collector Arterial Street, how far the signages could be and how big they could be. So that itself will regulate how many can be put on a certain road type, and I think that will reduce the clutter of signage that we see now. But we are going to look at the spider signs a little bit more. That was the comment we received in this round of engagement, so we will be taking that into consideration.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. Now I'm going to put my own hat back on. It is shocking to see that there's 27. There is, I guess, 27 districts in South Florida. I think that's amazing. Great job in reducing that scope of amounts, and in general in the paperwork compliance burden that you've taken away from people in this particular bylaw revision is truly amazing. Can you maybe give me some guidance as to what you did to make sure that somebody in that area with those 27 districts didn't become a non-conforming house in some way inadvertently?
Through Mr. Chair, so we did look at what existing developments are and and the newer regulations are more permissive and flexible for the most part. So we have tried to reduce as much non-conformance as possible. There might be few instances though where we couldn't.
Okay.
Yeah, so I will just elaborate. I think the potential of there being non-conforming dwellings, buildings, it's there. That is a risk, and I think that internally we've talked about how will we manage that risk and mitigate it. One of the avenues that we have available to us is in approving development is to provide variances. But we would need to take a look at that on a case by case basis and understand what has been allowed on the site in the past versus what is permitted under the new bylaw. So yeah, you raise a really good point because that is a potential risk in some cases, and we don't know the scope.
Okay, thank you. A couple of just other general questions as I try to wrap my head around the whole planning classification issues. So my understanding is that in Pineview, some roads were considered collectors where duplexes were applied. Then we sort of changed and tweaked that a little bit and reduced the amount of collector roads that would have duplexes on it. Can you maybe lead me or give me some guidance into the process as how do we determine something's a collector road versus a local road? It seems a little bit fluid.
To Mr. Chair, so when we started the process, we chose the collector roads, arterial roads, based on our transportation master plan. And then sometimes the additional level of scrutiny had to be applied where people felt or we felt that, okay, this is a collector road, but doesn't really feel like, or just I think visually doesn't feel like collector road. And those instances were more in, say, Sheridan area, and the downtown area where a lot of roads are classified as collector, but they don't feel like collector roads. So that's where we had to kind of go back to calling them local instead of collector. So that was the process. We started from the TMP, but then what do they feel like really? Do they really feel like collector? Should there be more intensification or not? And that came out of the dialogues that we had with residents basically. In case of Pineview, so the only thing that collector road classification is doing there is because Pineview doesn't have the rear lanes, we wanted to make sure adding more collector roads along the, more duplexes along the collector road is not going to create too many accesses off of that main street. And so that particular street that the residents asked us to remove from that classification, that would have actually helped in that additional scrutiny. Is there going to be too many duplexes there? But residents didn't feel like that was necessary, and they didn't want that street to be classified as a collector street. So it wasn't the width of that street was also narrower than the ring road, if we call it a ring road. So we removed that classification and kept it as a local street, which means now there could be the duplexes are discretionary along collector and collector and local roads in Pineview. So that will be the same. It's that additional scrutiny where it's too many duplexes now, that might not be to the same extent what we would apply to along the collector streets.
Okay, so if after we've passed this by law, residents in a certain area says, well, our road is not a collector after all. Is there a mechanism for them to appeal it, or is there, or to I guess make their case to you, or would that require a whole land use bylaw change?
So, go ahead. Thanks for that question, Chair Wesley. I believe that there are 60 days for anyone to appeal the land use bylaw, should they wish to. That's pretty standard. After that, yes, they could come forward with an application for an amendment. However, I think as administration, it would behoove us as well to realize if we made an error in some way, that we would bring something forward as administration to make sure that we fix anything that was a mistake.
Okay, awesome, thank you. And I'm really interested to see what Councillor Nguyen's awesome question is.
That's a good one.
Go for it.
Chair. No, my question was going to be about the photo of Griesbach and that goal you have. A beautiful concept, right? It's the entrance to the neighborhood, and you have the traffic circle there as well, and everybody kind of moves through a node where it has park space and access to amenities and services as they get home from work, say, or otherwise. Kids can ride there and gather and get snacks and whatnot. So we saw this. Craig showed us the same picture to Williger Town Center, and I'm wondering, I mean, we can't obviously just go build something like that in established neighborhoods. When are you showing this to us during land use bylaw process here? Is it realistically the goal to have something similar to that, say, one on each side of the highway in our two new 1 square mile ASPs? Is that what we're aiming for, or why do we keep seeing this? Because I'm just trying to figure out how to apply that. I mean, yeah, great concept. I get the concept of nodes and collectors, arterials, entrances, and mix of different housing types, which you're showing to us, and commercial. So yeah, how do we think about that maybe?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Councillor Nguyen. You know, I think as we look at some of the newer NSPs that are coming forward, we are seeing concepts that are kind of similar to this. And so, you know, is this possible or realistic? I mean, this is what people are looking for today, in terms of what kind of community they want to live in. And so that is what the market is trying to provide. It doesn't necessarily work in every case. I think when you look at Griesbach and the population there, you know, it's at a different scale and level, but the concept is there in terms of you want some kind of node where there's a core of activity. You go down to your local street and it's nice and quiet, right? And, you know, yeah, hopefully the kids can ride their bikes, or anyone who wants to ride a bike can ride it, or walk to get to something that is, you know, a focal point, whether that's a place to get a Slurpee or an ice cream, or whether that's your park, or whether that's the school where the playground is. What is that community gathering place and that focal point? And so I think what you'll see is the zoning that will apply to those newer neighborhoods provides for that. And it will really simplify sort of what our framework looks like from that perspective. Shri, I don't know if you want to add to that.
So we do have our municipal development plan identifies the node locations within the existing neighborhoods as well. And some of them could be just the recreational zones. And our idea of what this land use bylaw is doing is allowing to build on to those synergies that are already there. So for example, Pineview, like there used to be 7-Eleven, or there is a cluster where there is a church, there is some commercial space, and that's where people go to. That's within the walking distance, and so it's convenient. So just creating those kinds of focal points for new neighborhoods and strengthening what we have in the existing neighborhood. So through the new land use bylaw in the node location, we allow for more of mixed use to happen. It's not that it has to happen, but you can build on it, and that would be a good place to have more community services and more things for people to do. And it could be park, it could be something recreational, it could be institutional, it could be combination of school and commercial spaces.
So really the way I should be thinking of it is we'll have, you know, maybe pockets of these elements throughout the community with collaboration between planning and developers, what they see kind of the vision of their neighborhoods are then. Okay.
Correct.
That's great. Yeah, I appreciate that information. Thanks.
Okay, well, awesome. Well, thank you very much for your presentation, for answering all our questions. Really, really appreciate that. And Lindsay, good luck on the hockey pool. I'm cheering for you. Okay. So, any member inquiries? Once, twice, two. All right. So we are now, Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong. We are going to recess the committee of the whole for about 10 minutes. We are then, during that recess, we're going to recess the committee of the whole, sorry. Then during said recess, we're going to then convene the emergency advisory committee and then come back to the committee of the whole. Awesome. That's going to be in recess for a short while, but for 10 minutes before the Emergency Advisory Committee begins. Okay, awesome.
5 o'clock?
Yes, 5 o'clock.